Good evening, everyone. So, this is the first episode of Perspectives. Today, we have with us an engineer turned into a mutual fund expert with an experience of over 20 years. He is the man who shaped Motilal Oswal to become an equity centric AMC, managing over 35,000 crore worth of equity assets. He's none other than Mr. Ashish Somaiya, MD and CEO of Motilal Oswal AMC. Let's begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mansi, for the introduction. Thanks a lot, Ashish sir, for agreeing to do it at such a short notice. This is our first digital initiative, and we could not have anyone better than you. And as you know, first love and first things in life are very special, and this will always remain very special to you. And it's my privilege to host you today. Thank you for agreeing.
Thank you for calling me. Thank you. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. So let's start it, sir. To start off this conversation, I want you to share with us your thoughts on market and what's exactly is going on right now. I mean, personally, if you ask me, it looks like a roller coaster. 11,500 market touches 7.5, and in no time, before you could understand anything, it's back to 10.5. How will an investor handle this volatility and invest in this market?
Yeah, I must say that a lot of the things which I will be saying in response to your question is probably easy for me to speak and difficult for your investors or our listeners to actually practice. But at the same time, I must say that I'm not talking purely as an asset management company or a market participant. I'm also talking as a fellow investor because the firm which I represent, that is Motilal Oswal, they have a long tradition of themselves investing in the funds or the portfolios where the clients are invested. So there is a very, very high skin in the game. Approximately 7 to 8% of the total AUM that we manage is actually contributed by our own founders and our own companies. So I'm not talking purely as a market participant. I'm also talking as a fellow investor. And on your question, I think, a couple of things that I would like to share. First is that, this roller coaster, what you mentioned, while it has been particularly savage in the last 6 months, and actually we are having some or the other type of roller coaster activity actually now for nearly 2 years. But yes, last 6 months has been particularly savage. The reason being that, the economy itself has gone through many things. If you see, for example, it started, last 3-4 years with demonetization and then GST implementation. In 2018, ILFS defaulted, and there was a credit crisis, and many things have happened. I don't want to get into the detail of all of that. So last 2 to 3 years has been very volatile. But the reality is that in every 10 years, there are 3-4 really bad years when it comes to equity markets. And instead of dwelling too much into the past, the good news, what is relevant for everybody is what is going to happen from here on. Okay. And what is relevant for everybody is not that, we should invest now and something will happen. What is more relevant for people is what will happen from here on. And equally relevant for people is that what we have already invested, what's the future for that? How will we recover, etc. The good news actually is that I'm reasonably convinced that maybe July, August, September could see some volatility because this quarter there is a lockdown. So what is the impact of this lockdown? We will know only when companies declare their results in July, August, and September. So from that perspective, maybe next 3 months is going to be volatile. But after that, I'm very, very confident that we are going to begin a new chapter as far as market performance is concerned. What gives me this confidence? One is that in Hindi we call mandi. So whenever the market comes out of a mandi, when the economy comes out of a mandi, it always happens with very high liquidity, very low interest rates, very low inflation. At the same time, if you see in the last 2 to 3 years, there has been a massive cleanup. So there are no weak companies, there are no leveraged companies, there are no companies who are surviving with bad governance, there are no zombies who are actually floating around. Whether it is NBFCs, banks, listed corporates, any of the sectors, you see there is a massive clean out. Now, when there is a clean out, obviously it creates some pain, but then the guys who are the leaders in every sector or the guys who are the survivors who have weathered the storm, they are going to become much, much, much stronger. And my sense is that after we are through with the next couple of months, the next 2 to 3 years is going to be a tremendous wealth creation journey, at least as far as I can understand it. Right now, people might be thinking that, what nonsense is this guy talking? It's not possible. But I know for a fact that this is how it always sounds. In 2008-9, if somebody said that 2011 or 2010 you will make a lot of money, people would have said the same thing. In 2012 or 13, if you told someone that in 14 and 15 people will make a lot of money, again it would have sounded like the same thing. It always sounds like this. But couple of things which you should never forget, that people who invest in the good times and they hold back in the bad times, they can never make wealth. And people think that money is made by investing in good times. It's a completely wrong notion. Money is made by investing in bad times. Only when the good times come, your account statement looks nice. That's the thing to keep in mind.
True. Very well put, sir. I agree. And just to take this forward, sir, of course, as you have very well explained that, people who have always stayed in all courses of the market are the one actually who have enjoyed this wealth and wealth creation journey. On this context, I wish to ask you, sir, this is one phrase which we always use or rather hear in market is be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. But when it comes to reality, I have not seen many investors actually practicing this, what we talk about. It is very easy to talk and say about it, but it is hardly demonstrated. When the time has come, probably maybe 2 months back when it was there, people just ran away out of it. So what should an investor do to overcome this behavioral bias? Or if I could ask, or I could put it forward that, timing this market.
No, I think it is related to the previous point which I mentioned. I know your previous question was more about the economy and markets, but where I ended that response, I think it is related to what you're asking now. Basic point is that people think that, money is made in the good times. I think that you have to get rid of that notion. Money is not made in the good times. Only your account statement shows it in the good times. Money is actually made because you invested in the bad times. I think that is, see, what we have to keep in mind is that why, when you are saying that these are bad times, there is a lockdown for 1 quarter. So many companies have practically zero sales in April and May. At least 1.5 months. April until mid-May, at least, most companies will have zero sales, right? So what people will say, the situation on the ground is really bad. I don't know what are you talking, these kind of things people might think. But yes, that is true. But that's the reason why so many companies are available 40, 50, 60%, below. So what happens is that when the things are going good, we don't understand that when things are going good, that is why Nifty is 12,000.
Yes.
So when things are going good, we think that it's not in the price. We think that it can keep getting better and better. When things are bad also, we don't realize that it's already in the price. And we think that 7,600 will become 6,000, 5,000, 4,000 or 3,000. So I think that we have to keep in mind that when everybody is panicking, when everybody thinks that world will come to an end, at 7,600 Nifty, if everybody make projection that no, now it will become 6,500 and then some graphs and charts and everything will come, correct? So those are the times, when everybody thinks that, I'll give you an example. I myself said that July, August, September will be bad for the markets. But you also track the markets because you also know that I have not said something unique. Everybody knows that July, August, September will be bad. And now people are telling me, "Saab, ye to sab bol rahe hain, aapne isme naya kya bol diya?" So yeah, that's true. That's also a way to think. So at 7,600 also, wasn't everybody saying it will now become 6,000? So what is happening is that instead of falling into a herd psychology, we have to think that really does all these HDFC banks of the world, the best of companies, do they really deserve to fall 50, 60%? I mean, that is what we have to really think. That, see, it is very well known that when you take the market capitalization of a company, it represents the total value of a company. And that's the value you are paying if you were to theoretically buy the whole company today by paying a check. That's the amount of money you would have to pay to acquire the whole company. It's a very well-known fact that when you are paying to buy a company or its stock, bulk of the current value is actually composed of its future earnings power. That आगे जाकर 5 साल 10 साल में कितना इससे मुनाफा निकलेगा, कितनी revenue निकलेगी. So it's a current value of your future earnings potential. Now what has happened in first quarter of FY21? 45 to 50 days are washed out. So एक क्वार्टर समझो के धंधा नहीं होगा. एक क्वार्टर धंधा नहीं होगा तो पूरे साल की प्रॉफिट कई कंपनियों की 12-18 महीने की प्रॉफिट चली जाएगी, राइट? Now, if you know that the market value actually represents the future earning power, then you have to think that for 1 quarter of disruption or 1 year, if there is no profit, how much the market value needs to be lost? Does it deserve 50-60% to be lost? Does it deserve 10% to be lost? Does it deserve 30% to be lost? That is one question to be asked. Second question to be asked is that, well, how many of us are willing to look beyond 1 year? भाई अब FY21 का फर्स्ट क्वार्टर अगर जीरो हो गया तो इस साल कई कंपनियों का मुनाफा नहीं बनेगा, तो तब उसीलिए तो उन सारी कंपनियों का दाम 30-40-50% डाउन भी तो हो गया ना. इट हैपेंड नो. Now, how many of us are willing to understand that, okay, fine, FY21, chalo, let's get it over with. It's already in the price. How many of us are willing to look at FY22, 23 and 24? You know what happens when the index shows 7600, no? What people start thinking, कि FY21 तो गया ही गया और 31st March FY21 को दुनिया भी खत्म हो जाएगी और FY22 तो आएगा ही नहीं कभी. अरे भाई ऐसे नहीं होता है ना. You know, in my 21 years, I've been told 4 times that the world will come to an end, but it didn't come to an end, no? So we have to accept that, okay, yes, there is a damage. We have to understand that भाई जो damage की हम बात कर रहे हैं वो सबको पता है, वो भाव में आ गया. जैसे हिंदी में कहावत है भाव भगवान, गुजराती में भी हम बोलते हैं भाव भगवान छे, ऐसे हिंदी में भी कहावत है, इंग्लिश में बोलते हैं that the market is efficient, right? Or they say it's in the price. So when you are not willing to look at FY22, FY23, FY24, and you're stuck up because 1 quarter is bad, then you cannot look forward. Then you will never make the gains.
Basically, market discounts everything, and that must be understood and accepted.
बार बार देखिए आजकल क्या होता है कि हर आप हम हैं, आप हैं, हम किसी से भी whatever कोई भी बात हम कर लें, हर स्टेटमेंट का स्टार्टिंग या तो एंडिंग क्या होता है पता है आपको? Yeah, but the situation on the ground is really bad. वो तो हमको पता है ना, वो तो हमको पता है ना.
True.
वो तो ऐसा कौन बंदा है आप बताओ जिसको पता नहीं है ये.
Correct.
तो सभी लोग तो आगे के देख के अभी जो जितने लोग बाजार में कुछ बाइंग कुछ कर रहे हैं, इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, जो लगा पड़ा है इतना पैसा, तो क्या वो सब पागल तो नहीं हो गए? सब लोग को पता है कि 1 साल खराब हो गया, तो सब आगे की देख करके अपना कारोबार कर रहे हैं.
Correct, sir. बिल्कुल.
That's a fact.
True. True. I agree, sir. Sir, lot of discussion is happening on this China side, that there is a big hatred across the globe towards China. So if this materializes, how confident are you that, you know, India will be able to take a big share of this global trade and supply chain away from China?
Yeah, see, recent times, people have been reading more into it because of the geopolitical tensions. And then, you know, you saw this kind of press release like DHL is a very big courier company. And I think they've come with a press release that they have stopped picking up cargo from China and certain other parts. Because in India, for example, if Chinese goods are entering, they put a press release saying that there is a problem, you know, the customs is not getting cleared and some such things, you know, and so many talks about geopolitical and border related issues. So there is a backlash. And, you know, you hear a lot of Indian trade associations also talking like this. So yes, temporarily that part, this geopolitical issues and the bad press for China, clearly that will have some impact, right? Even you and me will start thinking now, you know, look, you know, we are importing so much from China. Ordinary guy like me, I'm not some businessman or trader or a factory guy, but being an Indian, even I will start thinking that, you know, ultimately, you know, who are we supporting, right? Who are we trying to benefit? So a lot of people don't believe, some people call it jingoism. I'm not going to put any adjectives to it, but definitely I would start thinking कि भाई, you know, who am I trying to benefit? कि ऐसा करने से किसका फायदा होगा? So उतना तो सोचना चाहिए. So everybody will think. But I'm not an expert on geopolitics. So let's park this whole thing aside and let us see whether this is temporary, whether this is permanent, and the feeling that we are left with, does it remain or does it go away? That is all secondary matter. But look at it this way, that, you know, all these manufacturing setups, where do people put factories? Where would people like to set up the manufacturing base? Clearly, these things depend on where the market is, right? Like, why did it go in the first place into China? Because China was like a huge market, but then they've gone beyond. They made themselves into an export hub for the whole world, right? They did not just do it for their market. They are supplying to every market across the world. So they've clearly transcended that. But basically, it starts with where is the biggest market and where is the environment conducive to investment. biggest market is in India, but time and again it has been proven, or people have been left a feeling that India is not the most conducive for the investment, right? Having said so, even before this whole geopolitics started, or even before COVID-19 came, there are many industries where India was gaining, right? You know it, that whether it is electronics, whether it is mobile phones, if you see pharmaceuticals, automobiles, two-wheelers, ये तो हमको पता ही है, right? Two-wheelers में तो पूरे world के largest यहीं से exports वगैरह हो रहे हैं. So of course there are many industries where India was already gaining traction. In the last 3-4 years, electronics and outsourced manufacturing for white goods, mobile phones were already made. So there are some parts where it is already shifting. And COVID or no COVID, in Ladakh, make it matter or no matter, eventually that is anyway Asian. It's a process which is already begun. It is going to happen. Now it's a question of whether we make India to be more investment conducive, and do we really, are we going to allow the natural process to follow, or are we going to expedite the matters and be aggressive? I think that is what we have to watch for. Hone wala to hai, but how well it happens and how much we are aggressive, that is what has to be watched.
Right. So in this context, sir, if we have to see, what is the biggest risk that you see for our markets in next couple of days, or in couple of months, or maybe years down the line?
Look, I recently read, Howard Marks is a very famous guy. He's written a couple of books also. There's one book called The Most Important Thing. And now, Understanding Market Cycles, that's also become very famous. He said one very interesting thing. He said that when markets are booming, everybody looks for opportunities. And when markets are in a bear phase, everybody is looking for risks. Now, what we should do is that we should keep in mind that because a lot of opportunities are being captured, that's why market becomes at the peak, or, it's bullish, right? And because a lot of risks have materialized, that is why market is where it is. So at the bottom, don't look for risks. And at the peak, don't look for opportunities. That is one of the things to keep in mind. But anyway, your question is pretty straightforward. What are the risks? So yes, see, one of the risks is we actually don't know what is the real impact on the economy. ये तो fact है ना. See, अभी क्या होता है कि जैसे some news item will come where somebody says that, okay, Maruti has booked 1.2 lakh cars. So, their situation is normalizing. अब ये pent up demand है या sustain करेगा वो पता नहीं है हमको. तो वो तो 3-6 महीने में ही पता चलेगा. Then some people will say that, look, I have heard that, this particular demand is going up, or this particular supply chain issues are there. See, right now, all of this is in the domain of conjecture. We need to watch for 2 quarters. The damage is done. Now we need to see what is the speed of recovery. Correct? That is the most important thing. So whether there is going to be a fast recovery or slow recovery, that is a big risk factor. Correct? That is something which one need to watch for. Second important thing is that, all said and done, the Western world will have bigger impact than us because their discretionary spend is higher than us. Their dependence on external economy like travel, tourism, imports, exports. So the Western world is going to have a really bigger impact than us. And how much collateral damage that causes, that is another thing to watch for. Long story short, if you ask me, 1 year later, if we meet from today, we'll be in a much, much, much better situation. I think as far as India domestically, locally is concerned, maximum number of risks have already materialized. That's why in the last 3-4 years, we are going nowhere. But I stand by what I said in the beginning, that in the next 2 to 3 years, there's a lot of money to be made.
Great. That's very motivating for most of the investors.
No, I genuinely believe it. A lot of times people may be very circumspect, but I think that if we just get ahead of the next 3 to 4 months, there is, and always see, a new bull run always starts when all risks have materialized. When we get out of this tunnel, you will find that interest rates will be very low, liquidity will be very high. Banks will have no choice but to lend because banks are basically in the business of lending. If they don't lend, their net interest margins will fall. Their NPA as a ratio would actually go up and they would start to lose a lot of money because if all of us place money with the bank and the bank is not getting compensated enough, they have, trouble at their hands. So generally credit offtake would pick up after such a big clean out. And that itself could be one big stimulus.
So next question which I would like to have your observation or opinion on the action of a Fed. I was reading an article written in New York Times yesterday where it was said that Fed balance sheet will touch closer to $8.9 trillion in next couple of months. Central banks across the globe have printed a lot of money, and possibly that is the reason why equity markets have not fallen also a lot. So two quick points out here is, have central banks become bigger than equity markets? And second, what are the negative implications of this printing is going to happen over the period of time on markets?
Look, one is there was never any question or never any doubt that central banks are bigger than markets, because just like when a music conductor waves that wand and different musicians play different instruments depending on the signal received from the music conductor. So definitely the Fed can make the markets to dance. There is no doubt about it. But we should not get into this. We should not get too much into a questioning mode, because a lot of times there are a lot of philosophical debates about this. And I understand all those debates, because sometimes what people are saying is that just to keep the market going, the Fed is doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why are they doing it? This is unnatural. This is not the way it should be. I understand the philosophical questions behind it and the moral hazards behind it. I respect that. But the fact is that today, with more and more number of people investing in the capital markets, and with more and more people and more business financing being routed through capital markets. Look, 10, 20, 30, 40 years back, whether it is India or America, everything was run by banks. There was no concept of a market, really speaking. Even in the US, it's become much bigger in last 30, 40 years. Before that, in any country's economy, banks were the biggest intermediaries. Now, what has happened that banks, obviously, there is a risk in the way banks operate, because all the entire economy, the system level risks, they get merged into a bank's balance sheet. And there is cost of running banks, and banks have to absorb all the risk. So instead of just running a bank-based system, now we also have a market-based system where people can deal directly with each other or through some intermediaries like pension funds, mutual funds, insurance, etc. So bank is one type of intermediary, but what does the bank do? It takes all the risks in its book, keeps 3-4% margin, and then conducts the business. But what do market-based intermediaries do? They don't absorb all the risk in their balance sheet necessarily, right? They are just an intermediary. So if I'm a mutual fund, pension fund, blah, blah, whoever I am, I'm investing on your behalf. Return is your, risk is yours. And I'm taking a very thin slice as a fees. So long story short is that the markets have a very, very important role to play. In the 20, 30, 40 years back, if there was a crisis in the system, it was about repairing few banks. Now the markets have a very, very big role to play. So you have to keep the markets going. Whenever the markets are going to freeze up because of liquidity, credit, or any other issues, you will have to have some of these Fed or some of these agencies to intervene to keep the markets functioning. That's the first point. Now, if you want the markets to keep functioning, then you will have to support it with, either some interest rate intervention, liquidity intervention, etc. And when the Fed has gone out and aggressively started buying bonds as well as printing money, right, which is again like, through treasuries, etc. Then obviously what is happening is they're keeping on buying treasuries. The government is issuing treasury, the Fed is keeping on buying, or the Fed is buying from the market. So obviously their balance sheet bloats. Now, there is only one condition for this, that when they are supporting the economy and their balance sheet is bloating, it has to eventually be backed up by economic activity. See, they are doing this to keep the economy afloat, right? They did it in 2010, 11, 12 also.
Yes.
They expanded, then they started contracting the balance sheet.
Yes.
So they calibrated it. They were able to manage it. It did not result in spike in inflation. It didn't result in an unending, aisa to nahi hua that, that all real estate prices went up 10 times. Nothing of the type happened. Yeah. So as long as they are calibrating it, and the end goal is not just, see, a lot of people think that their end goal is that market should go up. Boss, market going up is a fallout of the actions taken to support the economy. So we should not read it wrongly. They are not doing it just to keep the market glowing. It's not a musical chair the way people are actually thinking. They're doing it so that markets keep going, because for the economy to sustain, the markets are important. So please understand what is, temporarily the side implication may be that market gets very, excited about it. That's only temporary. Eventually, if it is not backed with economic activity, all this won't work.
So temporarily, these things can continue.
temporarily it may excite the markets, but ultimately whatever intervention they are making, their balance sheet is bloating, whatever it is, eventually it has to result in economic activity. Only then the excess money supply and lower interest rates, all of that buoyancy or froth will only be justified if it is backed by some pickup in economic activity eventually. They did it in 2008 and 9, and we have seen that afterwards, eventually in the US, there was 3.5 to 4. I mean, for a country of US size, 3.5% GDP growth is staggering, right? So it resulted in fundamental performance eventually. It was not all just bubbles and froth.
Fair enough. Ashish, these days, investing has completely become return centric. All discussion, communication, everything is on return. And particularly past returns is actually become a barometer to decide whether fund is good or fund is not bad. I mean, what would be your message to the investor that how should they assess a fund when they are investing or when they are planning to invest into a fund?
See, I think I agree with what you said. They become return centric, but that I cannot question because people are in it for returns. Now the question is that returns over what time frame? And the more important point is that I have seen more often than not that advisors as well as investors, the biggest issue is not the focus on returns. The biggest issue is drawing conclusions. See, my learning of 21 years now is that in the stock market, there are no conclusions. Never say कि ये तो खराब ही है, ये तो अच्छा ही है, ये तो कभी सुधरेगा ही नहीं, ये तो कभी बिगड़ेगा ही नहीं. ऐसा नहीं होता है. You will live to chew your words if you make conclusive statements in the stock market. In the stock market, there are only leaders and laggards, but there are no losers and there are no winners. That is something which one has to keep in mind, right? So what happens? The market rotates. The market will be in and out of favor of certain styles and sectors and stocks. And the people who have certain sectors and certain stocks at certain times, they will do very, very well, right? And when they do well, they will get a lot of money. And then if they do not rotate their portfolios, if they do not catch the next wave, or if they don't calibrate their positions, then that success will beget the next round of failure. So what investors have to keep in mind is that they should know when you invest in a fund, don't invest because of last 1 year return being great. Invest in a fund after understanding that what are the portfolio positions. What is this? See, if you see my portfolio today, right? Our portfolio is not like a deep value portfolio, but our portfolio is not a high quality growth oriented only. See, we believe in quality and growth, right? But within that also, what are we owning? We are owning a lot of auto. We are owning a lot of private sector capex. We are owning a lot of companies which are into, auto ancillary, private sector capex, a little bit say logistics. Now, in 2019, we started positioning our portfolio for an economic recovery. And July 2019, August 2019 till Feb 2020, the incremental data started to show that, okay, things are on the improvement. When COVID-19 came, it hit auto positions, stuff like ICICI Bank, which is also linked with with economic recovery, capex, so many things, right? So what I'm trying to explain? Anybody whose portfolio was very, very defensive, agar COVID-19 nahi hota, so FY20 would have been 2020 would have been a bad year for them. But anybody whose portfolio is very, very defensive from July, August 2019 till Feb 2020, they would be underperforming. And agar COVID-19 nahi aata, तो उनके लिए 2020 खराब साल होता actually, right? But see what has happened. Because COVID-19 came, all those defensive positions, which were actually turning out to be laggards just few months back, they've helped to look really great because the portfolio didn't fall so much.
Yes.
Right? So what we have to keep in mind is that every fund manager or every portfolio is following a certain philosophy, following certain thought process. There will be certain conditions in which it will work out. And the conditions are never stagnant or constant. So one of the most important things, I think, fund selection without an advisor is not easy. You have to understand what is each portfolio position for, what is the philosophy, under what circumstances it will play out, right? and never draw conclusions. Because आज जो laggard है, I'm quite sure अगले 3 महीने बाद वो laggard नहीं रहेगा. And really, if you ask me, if people are betting that the economy will never revive, and just by holding few FMCG stocks, they will sail through, then I think eventually that is also not going to work.
True.
Because if the world view is कि economy will never recover और दुनिया तबाही हो जाएगी, तब तो invest करने का कोई logic ही नहीं बनता है ना.
True, बिल्कुल. Ashish, you live, work on a daily basis and spend considerable amount of time with Ramdev ji, who is one of the best and finest investors in this country, and people call him Buffett as well of India. What has been your key learnings working with him?
So he's see, you all know him as a investor, right? That is what he's most famous for.
Correct.
But I have a slightly different advantage, is that I'm a managing director of a company which he is the owner or the largest owner or promoter. So why I said I have a different position is because I also see him as a entrepreneur or a promoter or a businessman. See, all the people who are outside my company, they see him as an investor. I also, of course, see him as an investor every day. He sits in our research meetings, investment committee meetings, where I am also sitting in the meetings. So I see him operate as an investor, which you all also see. But I also see him as a businessman, where I am the managing director and he's the chairman. So that side, which most of you will not see, that side I can see. And I will share, I know your question is about investing, but I would like to share one insight about business or about any, because a lot of our listeners may be young people who are running a business, etc. And you yourself are an entrepreneur. So one thing which he taught me, he said that, sometimes he speaks in Hindi and he's very expressive. So he said that, जैसा कपड़ा काटते हो, वैसा सूट सिलता है. देखिए क्या है, सूट सिलने से नहीं सिलता है एक्चुअली. अगर आप ऐसा सोचते हैं कि हम एक सूट जो है वो स्टिच कर लेंगे, जो ही आपने कपड़ा काटा वो स्टिच हो गया, बिकॉज जो आपने काटा है वही सिलेगा ना. कटने के बाद कुछ अलग तो नहीं सिलेगा. राइट. So what you have to keep in mind, if you are an entrepreneur, the design of your business will determine how your business is conducted. If you say, theoretically, let us say, if you say that in my business is very cyclical, is very volatile, then what kind of cost composition you have, that will determine your profitability. अगर आप करोड़ों रुपए कॉस्ट लगा दिए और फिर आप बोलोगे अरे ये बिजनेस तो बहुत सिक्लिकल है, इसमें तो वॉल्यूम ज्यादा चाहिए, अरे तो पहले इतना कॉस्ट डाला क्यों पहले. तो दैट्स एन एग्जांपल. देखिए क्या है, कपड़ा काट दोगे, फिर कैसे सिलना है वो डिसाइड नहीं कर सकते हो.
राइट, बिल्कुल.
कैसे सिलना है उसके अनुसार पहले काटना चाहिए था आपको. राइट. So this is a different this thing that he is a successful businessman also for last 35 years. There are very few people who are successful businessmen and successful investor, and he always tells me that if you're a good businessman you can be a good investor, but if you're a good investor it's not necessary that you'll be a good businessman also. So that is something which we should keep in mind, and I think for all good investors it's very important to understand the business. That's how I would put it.
Great, that's been a good learning. So we are coming almost to the end of our session, Ashish, and I would have a last question, and I'm sure in any session or every session that you have done, this must have been asked to you. Motilal Oswal as a house, how I have looked at it as is equity specialist, and you have demonstrated it over the years. There's no doubt about it. So this active versus passive debate comes into existence. Why do a house like Motilal Oswal need passive strategies?
So a good, if you really ask me, any good equity manager, any good active equity manager will always have respect for what the index does. And, if you acknowledge that, there is merit in index investing, only then you will be able to acknowledge that what you need to do to be a good active manager, right? So I'll give you an example. The way I see it is that, I see all equity products in 4 strata. You imagine a pyramid with 4 layers, 4 strata. The base, according to me, the base is actually the beta or the passives. Okay. Then if you see, there are active managers, but a lot of active portfolios, how they are constructed is that they have very high respect for the index. So what they will do is that if they are positive on a certain sector, let's say a certain sector is 12% of index and they are very bullish. So they might have a limit that they'll go up to 16% in the sector. But however bullish they may be, if the sector is 12% of index, they will not make it 20 or 30. If they are bearish, they'll be 8 versus 12. If they're bullish, they'll be 16 versus 12. But there is a limit to the active position. Why? Because if that active position goes wrong, then forget beating the index, you will actually underperform the index. अब इंडेक्स को कितना अंडर परफॉर्म करेंगे उसकी एक रिस्क लिमिट है, ज्यादा अंडर परफॉर्मेंस की टॉलरेंस नहीं है, तो उसको so the portfolio will have most of the sectors of the index, but it will have underweight and overweight positions, right? So they are managing the portfolio to beat the index by some margin, like 2%, 3%, 1%, whatever it may be. Now, this is a style of investing in the Western world. This is what has come under severe challenge, which the Western world calls them closet indexing or benchmark hugging, right? So first is passive, then comes benchmark hugging or closet indexing. Then comes the third. If you see our equity funds, we are 60-70% away from the index.
Yes.
Right. For example, in 2018, 2019-20, let me give you an example. जैसे निफ्टी में for example insurance है ही नहीं, but we have 10 to 12% in insurance.
Yes.
Right. Then for example, Nifty may have say 12% in IT. There have been many times when we have been zero. मतलब not 2%, 3%. नहीं है मतलब नहीं है. It's zero. Nifty may be having, say, for example, some PSU banks. Nifty may have Tata Steel, Tata Motors, or commodity stocks, or whatever it is. So our portfolios are agnostic to the index. Then you come to the fourth strata, which is alternates. Where our PMS, and like in our PMS, we are 90% away from index, meaning actually koi index se lena dena nahi hai. It's just constructed as a portfolio out of thin air in the sense of just bottom-up stock picking. So there is beta. Then there is benchmark plus minus, then there is index agnostic, and then there is alternates. If you see my company, we are in alternates and we are in index agnostic. All our funds are index agnostic. Our PMS AIF is in the alternate space. We are not in the middle. By the way, there are many mutual funds whose active positions vis-a-vis index are 40-45%.
Yes,
our active position vis-a-vis index is 70 to 75%, right? We are not in that space. So we are in the base. We are absent in the next one, and we are present in the third one and the fourth one. That's a deliberate strategy. Last thing, my worldview of passive products doesn't start and end with alpha and beta at all. Actually, I've given you the explanation, but I'm not stuck up about it. According to me, if you see a lot of young people who start investing today, they don't know where to start. And selecting a mutual fund is extremely difficult. So a lot of young people, they are digital, DIY, पता नहीं है कैसे सिलेक्ट करना है, कहां से स्टार्ट करना है. इसीलिए आप देखिए हम जितने भी हमने ETF नहीं किया, we did index fund, right, which is easy to transact. And if you see most of our communication on our passive products, you know what it says: if you don't know what to buy, you buy the market, right? So it's a very different approach that why we are doing it. It's basically for digital, it is for simplicity of choice, ease of decision making, those things. Alpha beta वाली जो controversy है वो according to me तो controversy है ही नहीं, because we all know that if we are not going to do better than the index by a handsome margin, then people will anyway buy the index. उसमें debate करने के लिए बात ही नहीं है कुछ.
Correct. So there is still a lot of room for active managers and active.
See, I'll also tell you why there is a lot of room. I'll make a statement and I'll explain. See, you should never worry about index capturing the market before market captures the economy. See, in our country, insurance है, ये diagnostics है, और कितने सारे ये engineering R&D है, या कितने सारे sectors और sub-sectors और segments हैं, which are not even listed in the market. तो index capture कैसे करेगा उसको? If it's not even listed. So that's why I said that before market captures economy, index cannot capture the market. So it's early days. There is some trends towards passive because of simplicity, ease of decision making, and so many things are there, and because the active world has complicated itself too much. So there are some trends, but I don't think that alpha is gone. I think there's a lot of scope to generate alpha.
True. And practically we all are required as far as
Of
active is
course.
concerned. And that
No, see, that goes without saying. I think that you are in an evergreen profession, because whether it is active or passive or whatever, I think decision making is anyway very difficult. I think asset allocation is a very, very complicated chemistry. Most people don't understand it. So advisors, see, for fund managers, if you don't do a good job, fund managers may not be needed, but advisors will always be needed. There's no doubt about it.
right. Very well put forward. Thank you so much, Ashish, for sharing your thoughts with us. And as I said in the beginning, that this is the first initiative and this is the first episode. So first always remains special, and you have always been special to us. Thank you so much. And it has